Welcome to the InfoWars Nightly News. I'm David Knight. It's Friday, November 8th, 2013, and here are our top stories.
Tonight, Obamacare enrollees trade private info for spam. Then, the Bitcoin ATM does big bucks its opening week. And the first metal 3D printed gun. That's next on the InfoWars Nightly News.
I am getting sick of this crap. I am so sick of all this stuff. I'm so sick of people acting like idiots.
Well, Obama famously said, if you have a business, you didn't build it. Well, here's how Obama himself describes a storefront that he built.
This is like having a really good product in a store and the cash registers don't work and there aren't enough parking spots and nobody can get through the door. And so we are working overtime to get this fixed.
Well, now we know the kind of store that Obama would build. Nobody can get through the doors. There's not enough parking spots. The cash registers don't work. But what he left out was that you can get the product for 5 times what you were paying for it before, but he's going to force you to buy that product. That's how it works. You don't want, nothing works except force with Obama. And how's that busted store doing? Well, we found out that just one person enrolled in North Carolina. Well, not exactly, because they couldn't actually pay for it. And then that person got scammed by somebody getting his email off of the enrollment process. And then we find out that in Delaware, they had better success. They actually had 4 people who signed up. And that only cost Delaware $4 million with a grant from the federal government. Meanwhile, over 1 million people in just 2 other states have lost their insurance. 900,000 in California, 250,000 in Denver. Well, if you're president and governor and things are going bad and everybody's talking about how incompetent you are, what's the first thing you do? Well, you take credit for jobs being created. You take credit for what other people are doing, what their investments are, what the risks are that they're taking in hiring employees, especially because it's going to be so expensive with Obamacare. And that's exactly what Obama did. And the mainstream media comes to the rescue with the job reports. CNBC reports shutdown, slowdown? No, job creation soars in October. But here's the reality about monthly job reports. Take a look at this website here, Marketplace. Here's how Marketplace shows job reports and how they evolve. The reality is that these monthly job reports are revised multiple times, just like you can see on the screen there. You have an original, then you have a revision, then you have another revision. They're totally bogus. It's nothing but spin and propaganda by the government to make people feel good about the economy. They can make the numbers go up, they can make them go down, depending on what kind of trend they want to show. And everybody forgets about the previous reports. They just go straight down the memory hole. And so people will forget about the previous month's reports. They just go straight down the memory hole. Well, if government is so corrupt, so unreformable, what are people going to do? Well, I think they're going to go around it. And we see people working on multiple ways to get around this corrupt system that can't be fixed, can't be reformed from Washington. We've got companies now that are getting out of the electrical grid. We've got large corporations that are literally unplugging from the grid. Since 2006, the number of electricity generation units at commercial and industrial sites has more than quadrupled. And they give a case study here of Kroger, talking about how they create biogas from food that's past its sell date. They said they've saved $160 million a year on electricity doing that. Walmart is using photovoltaic cells. And they said that it's still only 5% of the power generation from the utilities, but that's a very important, very profitable sector for them. And these companies are doing it because they're worried about the reliability of the grid, and they're worried about the rising costs. Costs are skyrocketing everywhere because they're shutting down coal-powered plants. And we have a very fragile infrastructure. So the question is, are you doing something for your family, for your business, to take care of these reliability and expense issues that are coming down the road? Now, also look that people are getting out of the system as far as currency goes. They're looking for an alternative way to store value, another alternative money system. And we see that increasingly with Bitcoin as well as others. The world's first Bitcoin ATM made $100,000 in just 8 days at a coffee shop. Now, the machine cost $20,000, but here's a face palm. They actually take biometric reading of your palm. There's a lot of people that aren't going to like that because the whole point of Bitcoin is to be anonymous. And yet another company called Lamasu is going to be building Bitcoin ATMs that do not record biometric data. So people are trying to opt out in the electrical system. They're trying to opt out in the financial system and get a currency that's really going to be trustworthy. And look at this. We've got now a 3D gun printer that is actually making guns out of metal. This is a major leap forward from the plastic 3D gun printing that we've seen Cody Wilson and others do as a sample to show what could be done. We have a company here in Austin called Solid Concepts, and as a proof of concept, they have a process called DMLS, which is direct metal laser sintering. Now, sintering is creating objects out of powder of metal, ceramic, other objects. They were able to make a metal gun, a 1911 semi-automatic pistol. So it's clear to the authoritarians that they're not going to be able to control the creation of weapons. That's part of what I believe is behind the war on ammo, but even create shortages with components like lead. We just saw that the very last factory that creates lead smelting direct from ore to finished product of lead, that's now been shut down in the U.S. due to EPA regulations. But we see all kinds of regulations about ammunition, restriction, registration, background checks, banning online sales. But if anything, this should make it clear that gun prohibition is not going to work. Just like drug prohibition has not worked. People will find a way to manufacture it, even if they have to manufacture it in their homes. And they will make much more severe versions of it than exist on the street today. If they ban guns, you're going to see a renaissance in gun design. Very potent guns, just like we've seen the potency of drugs go up under drug prohibition, just like we saw the potency of alcohol go up during alcohol prohibition. Well, the government is not staying still. They have their own plans, even though we may be trying to go around them and looking for alternatives to opt out of Obamacare, looking for alternative currencies that we can trust, ways that we can get off the grid and provide ourselves reliable electricity. They've got their own plans. And we see that with the Trans-Pacific Partnership. This is a major project of the New World Order, and it will create a New World Order. It will totally and fundamentally change the way this country's economic infrastructure is set up. But it's being done secretly and in private. And it's such an issue that we have organizations that are putting out a crowdsourcing call. They actually have a bounty for people to get information about this super secret negotiation that's being conducted between corporations and a few representatives of government. And yet the elected representatives, the legislators, the congressmen, the senators of all countries are not allowed to see it. A couple of them have. Here in the U.S., Ron Wyden and Alan Grayson have pushed to see it, but of course they've had a gag order put on them. They can't talk about what's there in there, and they don't know. We don't know exactly what's in there because they continue to have negotiating rounds. So whatever they saw is still going to change, but what they saw they don't like. And here's what Alan Grayson characterized it.
The result will be soon evident to everybody. When the agreement does get released, you'll see massive giveaways of our sovereignty, massive efforts to undermine the middle class in this country, massive efforts to keep us from making the decisions that we need to do to make ourselves safe, to keep ourselves healthy, and to actually have the kind of life we want to have. Why? Because we've given the entire process over to special interests. It's no longer even properly called a trade agreement. It's an anti-sovereignty agreement. It has very little, if anything, to do with trade at this point. And the fact that something like this can be negotiated in secret for over 3 years, it is an indication of how far our standards have fallen. I can't remember any time earlier in our history when we would have done this. I can't remember any time earlier in our history when we'd even make an effort to say that we couldn't have amendments on the floor of the House or the Senate about something that's so crucial to the way that we conduct our lives in the future. It's wrong, and the only way to fix it is for people to stand up against it.
So just like Bilderberg and other organizations, they're conducting this massive reorganization of the entire economic infrastructure, not just our country, but all the countries, and basically putting large transnational, multinational corporations at the same level as if they were sovereign states.
I'm Gigi Arnetta for Tyranny Watch on the InfoWars Nightly News. The Obamacare nightmare continues. Yes, the HealthCare.gov plague is seriously spreading. John McAfee had it right when he said,
I said scrap it because it's never going to work the way it's built, so we have to throw it away and start over.
And McAfee said it was unrepairable, but yet they decided to roll it out on October 1st. And they allow anybody, it seems like, to be a navigator. Sebelius said that, yes, navigators don't need background checks.
Isn't it true that there is no federal requirement for navigators to undergo a criminal background check, even though they will receive sensitive personal information from the individuals they help sign up for the Affordable Care Act?
That is true. States could add an additional background checks and other features, but it is not part of the federal requirement.
So a convicted felon could be a navigator and could acquire sensitive personal information from an individual unbeknownst to them.
That is possible.
For those who are willing to risk it, try again. One guy in Miami kept trying over a span of 30 days to get on the HealthCare.gov site. He chronicled his journey with over 100 screenshots of the train wreck. On the first day, he got a screen that was meant to have him enter the answers to 3 different security questions that could be later used to verify his identity. But none of the drop-down list of questions had any actual text in them. He said, I gave imaginary answers to made-up questions. The system doesn't even respond in the same manner time after time, so he never knew what would happen next as he continued to try to get through the website. Ultimately, it was more expensive than the kind of insurance he has now, so that was a bust. And it's not just people having problems with HealthCare.gov. In North Carolina, Blue Cross Blue Shield found the entire system so filled with glitches that the company decided not to upload data because it was afraid false information might enter their computer system. Beyond the HealthCare.gov site, the scammers and crooks are out in full force. By phone and by email. Emails reveal a scammer was using the insurer's name to try to obtain personal information. A person was also making phone calls claiming to be the National Health Care Registry and falsely claiming it was taking over healthcare reform contracts from Blue Cross Blue Shield. The result? Only one person was able to sign up, but hasn't paid yet. That's a big fat 0 in the enrollment department. I'm Gigi Arnetta for Tyranny Watch on the InfoWars Nightly News.